Hello, fellow fans of the pony kind. This is Mage speaking, and do I have news for you? Firstly, look! My fourth leg! It exists! You can all stop worrying about it now. Secondly, are you hearing an awesome little tune in the background? This tune was custom made for me by Reverb Brony. He makes awesome music. If you like music, go check his stuff out. I'll put a link in the description of the video, and maybe even a link on the actual video, if I figure out how. And lastly, I'll be introducing a new doohickey in my videos. I call it the kitty sticker! See that cute little kitty over there? That's Lulu, my kitty sticker. It has 3 modes: neutral, positive, and negative. In my videos, I'll be expressing both positive and negative thoughts on the episode, and probably often enough I'll just end up having an argument with myself. To keep track of what I'm actually saying, I'll have Lulu. When I'm stating a fact or just talking about other things rather than the episode, Lulu will stay in its neutral position. When I'm praising the episode, saying something positive, or just mentioning something I liked, Lulu will go into its positive mode. And if I say something negative, bad, or something I disliked, Lulu will be in its negative mode. Think of it as a small visual aid in case I get a bit too confusing. If you think that my show works better without the lovely music and or kitty sticker, feel free to say so in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. Now then, with that out of the way, let's begin the episode. Are you ready, Lulu? He's a sticker, he can't talk. The animation in this episode is nothing special in comparison to other episodes in this season. It had a few animation errors, like one of Pinky's eyelashes goes missing in the scene where she tells Twi how bad she feels for forcing her to choose. Also, the animation of Twilight sitting at the cafe seemed off. Or was she supposed to have a huge butt like that? Anywho, the animation was decent enough, nothing much to complain about. Background-wise, we get to see more of Ponyville in this episode. The apple farm, the cafe, Twi's library, as well as getting to see a bit of other locations in the daydreams of the ponies, like the castle in Rarities and the garden in Fluttershy's. It gave us a lot to look at, so no reason to complain here either. The story in this episode was nice and simple. This type of story has been done before, but this time it was given a bit of a twist, since usually the choice is between 2 people, while this time it grew up to 5 and eventually the whole town. It had decent pacing, and I'll admit, when rewatching, I smiled at the jokes more often than I expected. The jokes were very small, but good. I like how they didn't get in your face with slapstick, and you just had to catch those little moments. A more noticeable example would be when everyone is crowding Twilight and she exclaims, "Quiet!" Everyone goes silent except for Pinky, who continues on with, "And then I said, Oatmeal, are you crazy?" Oh, a lot of people have taken issue with how the story was told. Just like in the previous 2 episodes, Twilight runs into each pony individually as she walks, so that each pony can have their own little moment. This is not necessarily bad, but it was already done in the previous 2-parter, twice. And now it's done in this single episode, twice. It gives the overall series a wrong impression, making it seem like it can't handle more than 2 characters in the focus. We can't immerse ourselves in the universe as everything is so linear, as if you were playing a board game and have an encounter every few steps. A lot of people have also taken issue that for a cartoon that has a subtitle of "Friendship is Magic," this episode really brings out the jerks in the characters that we're supposed to care for. Not saying that it was a bad episode, but several people have noted that it perhaps would have been better to hold on to that episode until a bit later in the season when the characters are more established and we've grown more fond of them. But when you look at the supposed intentions of the writer of the first 3 episodes, you sort of see why they made this episode the 3rd. Lauren Faust was head writer of the 3 episodes, and each episode was sort of a guideline for future writers. The first episode introduced us to the main cast and their overall personality. The second episode introduced us to their character strengths, and this episode introduced us to their flaws. I think the idea was really good, but it still doesn't change the fact that the characters in this episode were slightly dislikable. Out of their own character even. True, by this point we didn't really know much about their characters to tell if they were being out of character, but they still show some traits that you wouldn't expect them to possess, or a trait that later on is not addressed so much. Examples would be the scene where the main 5 are crowding Twilight again, complaining, and Fluttershy is right there with them, frowning and very obviously expressing her disapproval. It's contradictory to what we've seen so far, and even in the episode itself. Just moments before, Fluttershy was too shy to confidently express her wish to go to the gala without the prod of Angel Bunny, and now she's openly raising her voice and complaining? And what about Rarity? This episode really painted a poor picture of her, pushing her into a stereotype that she does not belong to. A lot of fans were put off by Rarity in this episode, and this episode is the most common reason why people started off hating her. Later in the season, we found out that she is a hard-working pony with a wish to make the world more beautiful through her art. That is a wonderful dream, relatable, and a lovely message for the target audience. I'm just happy the other writers didn't follow that guideline of her character. In my research, I've noticed that almost every single review mentions Celestia in a bad light. Sometimes calling her a troll because she sends Twilight only 2 tickets while fully knowing that she has 5 new friends. Now, I personally do not disagree with this opinion, however, I will present you with a different view on the situation. Think of it this way, when a person gets invited to an elite party, how many tickets do they get? Usually 2, one for them and one for a friend or date. That is the standard. The party planners do not take into account how many friends you have, even if they are someone you know. A standard invitation is 2 tickets, and that's what Celestia did. It's not her concern to know if Twilight's friends wanted to go. Even if they did, the whole flippin' town wanted to go. But that's the point of the fancy gala. Not everyone who wants to gets to go. However, had Twilight asked for a favor in the very beginning, then it wouldn't be beyond reason for the princess to give a few extra more, as a special favor to her student. In the end, I don't think it was all that troll-y of Celestia treating Twilight just like every other guest at the beginning. Now then, the great question to end all questions, who deserved to get the second ticket? I'd like to say that I think the conclusion of the episode with Twilight not being able to choose because all reasons were good was fair. I support that decision, and it teaches the targeted audience a good lesson. With that said, I'd still like to tell you who I'd pick and reasons why. Well, ignoring the fact that the ticket was most likely meant for Spike, let's go over each of the reasons in the order they were presented. Side note, several points that I'll make are taken from a very lovely article that I had read a long time ago. I wanted to find it and give it proper credit because I strongly agree with what they had to say, but I couldn't find the article anymore. In the event that I come across it again after posting this, I'll put the link in the description and I'll put up an annotation on the video as well, letting you all know if it's been found. Firstly, Applejack's reason. A lot, if not most people, agree that she should have gotten the ticket. I mean, her reasons are flawless. She wants to get her home fixed because who wants to have a leaky roof? She wants to have her tools fixed because it'll make her family's life easier. And lastly, she wants to get a surgery for her granny, a sentiment I can relate to, myself having a granny that I'd love to make life easier for. But there's one minor flaw in Applejack's plan. The food in the gala is free. Who would go out and buy commoner food when there's fancy free food inside? Other than Soren, I mean. A logical way to go about this would be asking Twilight if she could ask the princess if she could let Applejack cater in the gala. I'm sure the princess would pay, no matter how well AJ's food goes over with the guests. I'm sure they'd eat it if they saw the princess eat it anyway. So, although AJ has a good reason, her plan was doomed to fail from the beginning. Second is Rainbow Dash. Her reason was because she wanted to go and meet her idols, the Wonderbolts. In addition to that, she hoped to show off and get invited to join the team. There's nothing wrong with that actually. It's a fairly good reason to want to go to any place, and oftentimes a reason that we see most in real life out of the 5. But if she'd do what she imagined to do, then she'd sooner get kicked out of the gala rather than get invited to the Wonderbolts. She'd crutch the show, and no matter how good you are, an interruption is an interruption. It just doesn't work like that, Rainbow. If that was your plan, you're better off not going. Save yourself the embarrassment. Next up is Pinkie, and has anyone ever told Pinkie what a gala is? Just look at her fantasy. It's a carnival, a fair, not a gala. I'm sure that as soon as someone would have cleared things up for Pinkie, her desire to go there would have disappeared, or at least she wouldn't mind giving up the ticket for someone more willing to go to a stuck-up gala like that. Pinkie has a good reason to go. She wants to party, and it really is a sincere one, but this is not the kind of party she imagines it to be, and not the kind of party she wants to go. After that, we get Rarity. Now, if you toss away everything we know about Rarity and just imagine that these first 3 episodes is all the knowledge we possess of her, then her reasoning, is valid. She says that she wants to go there to meet her true love. I heard people calling her a gold digger only after the money and the title, but that's not quite so. She enjoys the sort of lifestyle because of the sophistication, manners, and the glamour, and the prince represents all these things. Rarity is doing something a lot of people in real life do. She creates a false image of the prince in her head and falls in love with her own creation rather than the true person. In real life, people like to assume things about other people just based on their appearance, presentation, rumors, and treat them accordingly based on the conclusions that they draw. They end up believing that that was enough for them to learn what sort of character that person is, but in reality, they're just saying what they want to see. Actually, this whole situation is a rather clever setup in the future episode to teach the target audience about people whom you adore turning out being not what you might imagine them to be. They disillusioned them, breaking that love at first sight, happily ever after trope. It was clever of the writers to do such a thing, but it was taxing to Rarity's appeal, especially since we didn't even know if this will be picked up on later. So her reason to go is a setup for a nice little lesson to the audience, but does it work as a good reason to go? No, not really. Her plan has too many ifs in it. The delusion meter in it is pinky high. The chances of things working out exactly like she planned are super slim. She'd have more chances if she'd asked Twilight to put in a good word to the princess and hopefully get a request to work on a project in the palace. With luck, she'd get to meet the prince more naturally. A much more preferred motivation for her to go would be to rub elbows with the cream of the Canterlot, show off her dresses, get to know influential ponies, to make her dream of becoming a famous designer all that easier to fulfill. The gala would have been a perfect place for her to mingle and impress, get her name out there rather than meeting Mr. Right. Really, if that had been her motivation, she probably would be the victor of this debate. But it isn't, so let's move on. Lastly is Fluttershy, and her reason seems one of the weakest ones. She can see animals and flowers anytime. She lives by a forest as an animal caretaker, right? But think about it. The garden has exotic animals she probably hasn't seen before, and all of the flowers will be in bloom at once. So many exotic flowers, and it only happens once a year. A sight very rare and an experience that people pay real money for in real life. It seems like a legit reason to go. It's not very urgent because she could go any year if it's a yearly event, but seeing as the other ponies have very flawed and/or delusional reasons to go, Fluttershy's weak but grounded reason wins by default. You didn't expect that now, did ya? That's it for this video. No theories this episode, but if you'd like to hear one for next episode, feel free to post your own theories for Apple Book season, either in the comment section or, if it's long, send me a message, don't be shy. And with that I leave you. Have a great day. Mage out.